Hello and welcome to the 2021 French GP strategy analysis for Red Bull. This video will be going through a comparison of the strategy, position movements throughout the race, and race pace as well. Let's get started. So looking at strategy comparison, one of the few teams to have a different strategy between the drivers here. So Verstappen doing the relatively early pit there off the mediums onto the hards. To protect himself against the undercut from Bottas, and at the same time actually undercutting Hamilton. So excellent outcome for Verstappen there. And then, as we heard on the radio from the top three drivers, all of them complaining about tyres and the fact the tyres probably weren't going to last to the end. Red Bull making the decision to bring Verstappen in for a second stop. And I think definitely that was a protection to prevent Barcelona happening again to them. And as we saw, executed to perfection, Verstappen overtaking Hamilton with a lap and a half to go. Perez, excellent job lasting on those first tyres, and sure, his pace did suffer as a result at the end of that stint, but those hard tyres really were fresh towards the end and meant he could come in and get that podium off Bottas. So great job from Red Bull on the strategy this weekend. And just looking at some of the position movements, so as we know, Verstappen losing out at the second corner, second for a long time, and then undercutting Hamilton at that first series of pit stops. And then the relatively quick move onto the mediums again after the second pit stop, which I think was probably partially to make sure they were the first ones and Mercedes weren't going to pit before them. And then coming through with the victory. And then Perez, long first stint, had the lead for a while there. And then slowly brought Bottas in and overtook Bottas. So let's look at a comparison of the race pace between the two Red Bull drivers. That total gap at the start there, so it got up to about 7.5 seconds before Verstappen's pit stop. And then a little bit further up the road to Hamilton again for Perez. And then after the pit stop, Verstappen going onto the fresher tyres and Perez on his older tyres. You can see there, Verstappen really bringing back that gap again before Perez stopped, and Perez actually not really able to make much of an inroad on Verstappen when they both moved on to the hard, even though Perez were a little bit earlier. Fresher tyres there for Perez. And then after Verstappen made the second stop, caught Perez in no time, and Perez very kindly let him through easily. And then Perez did a relatively good job to keep with him, still a little bit slower, but given the difference in age of tyres and the fact Verstappen was on the medium compared to Perez on the hard, thought he actually did a great job there. And then those last 5 laps, Perez actually pretty even with Verstappen. So on the whole, relatively decent race pace for Perez. Still almost ended 10 seconds off, but relatively good job given he did have to stay longer on that first stint from a strategy perspective. Looking at the lap times here for every single lap, including the pit stops, as you can see there, Verstappen, anytime he got on fresh tyres, he was a lot quicker than Perez. But taking out those first 5 or 6 laps on new sets of tyres, Perez did a really good job of matching Verstappen, I thought. And as we've seen, Verstappen with his out laps, excellent job at switching on the tyres, which now we definitely know does actually relate to tyre pressures, given the new test for the French GP. So overall, good job from Perez, I thought. And then here, taking out the pit stops, you really do actually see the difference there, especially at the end of the first stint for Perez here when he was on the older tyres and Verstappen had the new ones. Looking at almost 2 seconds per lap difference there. And then towards the end, Perez having a few slower laps, some of those probably relating to back markers getting past Bottas. But Verstappen, excellent job, even though his tyres did reduce a little bit, he did lose a little bit of pace towards the last 10 laps, as you would expect. But as we know, he got the job done and he needed to get him past Hamilton. Looking at the difference here for every single lap moving along, you can see at the start of this stint, Verstappen pulling away, but then Perez, excellent job. A little bit slower as the tyres start to wear, but great job in the middle sector there. Verstappen making large amounts of time there when Perez was on the older tyre, and Perez's pace really did drop off during that time period. But once Perez pitted, nice and flat, and once Verstappen was on the new tyres, as you'd expect, fresher tyres, mediums compared to hard, quicker than Perez. But on the whole, you would have to say that Perez had a pretty good weekend, get through the podium, and this is definitely the second driver that Red Bull has been looking for quite some time now. And here, just looking at the histogram, and this, despite Perez being really, really close for quite a few laps there, you can really see just the sheer number of extra laps that Verstappen had his way compared to Perez. And sure, a lot of them in between 0.1 and 0.4 here, but as we saw, that really, really adds up, and 5 laps where he was over 2 seconds quicker than Perez. Obviously keeping in mind some of those pit stop laps, but Verstappen definitely having the bulk of time there. So that's the conclusion to the Red Bull strategy video from the French GP. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, subscribe, and if you've got any recommendations, feel free to comment on the video. Thank you.